Hey, welcome to the Do Good Work podcast. Today I'm talking to Heather Smith. Heather is an award winning interactive storytelling pioneer and technology visionary who brings over a decade of immersive storytelling leadership to StoryFile. She is the chief visionary officer of StoryFile, and I actually recommend checking out their website first to understand this. But what StoryFile does is through the click of a button, it actually turns a video into a two-way conversation. Where video is traditionally one way, StoryFile uses artificial intelligence and converts that video into two-way conversation where you can actually interact with the video, ask questions, and get a dialogue with the person in the video. Heather and StoryFile are on a mission to empower people to unleash the magic of conversational video technology and the future of storytelling. Heather, thanks for being on. West Coast podcasts are my favorite. So
Yeah.
we do the global ones, but let's be real. But Heather,
Mm.
this is really interesting. The work that your team is doing is taking a bet on a trend that probably won't hit the mark. Because I was doing some research and I actually finished a pod just recently with an NFT protocol founder, and we were
Yeah.
talking about the future of Web3, future how we're interacting with technology, and the future of metaverse. And Gardner review did a research. And these studies, they're studies, right? So they're not super accurate, but they're mentioning that early adoption and early adopters for the metaverse is right now. Like it's still new, it's being built, infrastructure,
Yeah.
but maybe early to mid majority in 8 years, 5 to 8 years. And what your team is doing seems to be taking a gamble and a good bet, which makes a lot of sense that it would go this way. How we're going to engage with video differently than we do already. And I kind of want you to paint a vision as to what inspired the creation of this, as well as the future that you see that can be built. Cause I can definitely see that future be built here.
Yeah. I just want to be clear though, it's not specifically about the metaverse.
No,
Um, it,
it's not, but I
it,
can see the
yeah,
application be when it's going.
it can be utilized, should be utilized in the metaverse. In fact, we're working with two companies right now. One artist just did an installation in LACMA where you can have a conversation with her in the metaverse. But anyway, that is back in 2010. I wanted to be able to have a conversation or ask people questions without them necessarily being present
Hmm.
there. The individuals that I was specifically concerned about would be, would have passed away by now.
Okay.
And so I wanted to preserve those conversations and that having that Q&A with this particular group of people. That led me to a 10-year long journey. And one of the things I found when I was talking to people internationally and showing them the technology and having them interact with it was they just wanted to do it themselves. They wanted to do it for their grandparents. They wanted to do it for their founder of their company. They wanted to do it with their aunt too, who they loved. And people came up with so many ideas, just so many. And at some point you take the hint. And we said, all right, in about, it was around 2016-ish, we said, all right, what would it look like if we actually made this technology ubiquitous for everyone? And at the time, there wasn't necessarily the infrastructure that we needed to really support something like that because you have to do it all in real time. It had to be cloud based. It was video streaming, internet bandwidth, whatever. But we knew it was coming.
Yeah.
We knew that we could, if we started now building this platform, in a relatively short amount of time, the infrastructure within the internet and online would be there to support it. We started in earnest in 2018
Okay.
was our first funding round. And since then, we have built a platform that enables anyone to create their own conversational video content.
Yeah.
That's what we do.
That's really it's you had some sort of software beforehand, or did you have something working beforehand that
Yeah, the software that we were using that I spearheaded, brought together a bunch of different teams and to develop this, but it was all manual
Mhm.
and it was a very high production value as
Mhm.
well. And it was just completely cost prohibitive for someone to do this with their grandparents. We had to essentially turn a $500,000 project into $500
Oh, wow. Yeah.
so everyone could do it. So you had to have it online. We had to have it, you had to be able to capture with whatever camera you had, which was now increasingly since then, your cell phones, your laptops. We don't have mini cams anymore so much. So, you had to be able to do it with all of that. And we had to foresee where the future of ARS, for example, and that speech recognition would get to. Just a lot of
It's a lot of
different
stuff.
tech,
Yeah.
a lot of different tech that all had to emerge.
And talk together. And I want to, before we dive into the actual, like the tech, the opportunity, I really want to peel the onion here because there's something greater that you did that I think I really don't want to overlook is that you had the idea what this could be. You
Mm.
had real limitations. How did you go about not just assembling the team, but how did you share that initially with the development? Because you have a non-technical background based on what you've said
Pardon?
through.
Non-techno. No, and I think that really helped me
Yeah.
because I didn't know what was not possible. I I remember having a discussion with an engineer, and at one point, he looked back behind him at his boss, and he says, "Will you just tell Heather that please, that what she wants to do is against the law of physics?" I want to know. I put my hand on his shoulder, which of course they hate. I put my hand on his shoulder and said, "Don't worry, we are all here to try and help you figure this out."
But that's what I
You
want
know?
to bridge though, because you have a vision for what could be.
Right,
We have the current limitations of where tech was.
right.
I see the clear. I mean, I still saw the video that you put on the homepage, or that's a YouTube video. And I see this being a practical application of how we interface, even with web. I can see that. But how did you? Now I can see it. But I want to know how did you go assembling that vision? How did you go? Because a lot of people who listen to this podcast, everyone, or humans in general, have a dream or a vision of what they want to create in the world. We all do. But there's a significant difference between just having an idea and taking action of it, and having an idea of knowing what to do and take action of it. Because it's the awareness is the first thing, and knowing what to do is the second thing. But I want to be able to like share that story because I think that's really it's really important.
So I knew what it had to be done, and, what I think sometimes is that people don't actually build something until there's a real need for it. And so what I did was I partnered with the one technology group at the time, and then I partnered with another institution that's an international leader in that particular field that I was following.
Mhm.
And it took me 2 years to convince both of those entities that they could do this
Wow.
and that it was important enough to raise the money to do it. And then we went out after the 2 years, they said, "Okay, we did a small proof of concept. Okay, it has merit. Let's go raise the funds to do it." And
Mhm.
I'm constantly amazed, even today, I'm constantly amazed at how little vision people do have.
Interesting.
It amazes me how people, even, non-creative people, but people don't naturally put two and two together, I think. And that was the one, if I had to say if there was one thing over the last 10 years that this whole experiment has taught me, or this whole experience and journey has taught me, is that you really have to take people on this journey of understanding what,
Mhm.
because and how it will work and how it will change the world and how it will change their daily lives. And you can't, some journeys for people, some people are longer than others. And you have to be patient and you have to be persistent. I didn't know. None of us knew before we did that proof of concept whether it would work or whether we could actually do it. But we knew we had to try. I remember being put in a room with 32 academics,
Mhm.
and they just ripped me apart. This is maybe in 2012. And don't forget, there was no speech recognition at the time, and Skype was just coming into its own. So it was very it was a very there were so many reasons to stop along the way,
Mhm.
but for some reason, in my gut, or I was just possessed. I was like, "This is my purpose in life. I have to make this happen." I did it eventually, and there were lots of stops and starts, lots of no's, tons of no's, Tons of, I don't get it. Tons of, oh, maybe you have something here, but do we really need to do this? How are we going to do it? Oh, it costs a lot of money. How can you even think of doing this? And it was really challenging. It was, I have to say. But it's okay because now you go through it and you look back and you're like, yeah, we built something amazing and it is gonna change lives. People will be able, think about when you go on Google,
Yeah.
like you don't know something. Maybe you saw a documentary, maybe you've been diagnosed with something. You go on Google, you get 20 pages
Yeah.
and you go through a rabbit hole, down a rabbit hole, sorry, hours and hours, and you don't even really find your answer. Why can't you just talk to someone who's experienced that same thing, a real person, and just ask them about it? Ask them, what did you go through? How did you tell your family? What was your experience with this? How did you feel? You just, those are the kinds of questions you got, and you don't get those online, and
Yeah.
you don't know who you're talking to either. If you read some of those things in the statements, you don't know who these people are. They might not even be people, they might be bots. It just, it's not a human way to interact with AI.
Yeah.
That's what we wanted to do. We wanted to humanize that and just use it as a tool. It was never really about the technology,
Hmm.
actually. It was always about the content. It was always about getting at that
Interesting.
conversation, being able to have impossible conversations because you would never be able to meet this person in real life.
So you had a heavy, because this goes always to the hinging on the purpose as to why you were so compelled to do this. And
Mm,
what was that compelling reason? Because there's two things. Like there's like yesterday I had a friend approach, hey, this is my startup idea, et cetera, et cetera.
mhm,
Like it's still in infancy mode. It might have been you 10 years ago, right? Here's an
mm.
idea. I don't know if it's possible, but like I think we need to dare to dream big. And you did that and you actually took action. And it reminds me of a quote that I read recently is it's hard to beat someone who doesn't give up. And that's so true. The theory that I have is that all goals will be completed if you actually just
Keep,
persist.
yeah,
Yeah,
keep doing.
persistence. But what kept you going specifically? Because there's a myriad, like entrepreneurs that listen to this or that when they have it, like they're either, okay, market trends are happening. This is what we have to do because of the opportunity. Or this is because this is my problem that I'm solving. So it's a missionary type cause. Or
Mm.
it's because I just care so much about this that every inch of my being is pushing me to do this. What kept you going specifically? And why did that keep you going?
I think it was the latter two things that you said. I couldn't imagine a world. I started this with Holocaust survivors,
Hmm.
and I couldn't imagine a world in which I couldn't have the kind of conversation and learn the kind of things that I was learning while talking to these individuals. And they've shaped so much of what we understand about World War II and about trauma and about violence in the world and humanity against humanity. And we just owe it to them to keep those conversations going.
Absolutely.
And they're just like people everywhere. They're going to have a limited lifespan. So you have to, it's my husband's father, for example, diagnosed with dementia
Yeah.
about 3 years ago. His daughter said, "Can I use StoryFile? We have to record his story because he will never meet my children. He will never be able to talk to them or tell him these stories in person.
Mhm.
So what's the next best thing?" Right? People have been filming relatives forever,
Yep.
telling storytelling itself, generational storytelling has been going on since humanity could communicate with each other.
Yeah.
And it's just the evolution of that. And it's allowing you to get at the information that you want to get at and actually being engaged in it. You ask your questions. You ask what you want to know. You're not getting this told to you by someone else, like a documentary filmmaker
Yeah.
who does this whole documentary. That's their perception of this experience, really. Even though they say it's based on true events, they still shape that. So you have questions afterwards and you want to know more and you want to find out what they didn't say. And so much of our lives are made up of who came before us.
Yeah.
Our identity is shaped by them. Why not give them the chance to say it in their own words, to say it to future generations, tell them the stories instead of us playing a telephone game and every single generation it gets,
It changes. Yeah.
shorter, it changes, and you don't really know. Why can't we just hear it from them? Hear it in their own words. see their eyes when they're telling that story.
It's pretty compelling. It's pretty important work. And the thing though, as because this is a company, in my position is that profits should be invested to make the impact, and that's the way that things go. Specifically because this level of impact, it's I had a thesis something like years ago that the future of humanity is just more humanity with more technology that comes through. That we're going to be looking for ways to have better interactions with humans as opposed to
Mhm.
tech. And I think this is
Absolutely.
a vein in that stem, but as you apply this to applications like the family, communication, storytelling, right now, where are we in terms of like infrastructure for how we can use this either in everyday lives or in business or the use cases? And what are some of the horizons that you're seeing where you really want to lean into and have StoryFile be the go-to
Kids will use this. They can talk to presidents. They can ask them questions about
education?
their president. They can you can talk to doctors to a certain extent and find out just exactly the information and have them speak back to you. You can find out information. You can find out, let's say you're starting a new job and you took that 300-page thick booklet back from your 2-week onboarding sessions and you forget all of it.
Hmm.
So what you're going to do is you're going to call someone, you're going to email someone. Why not just ask them right then and there and be able to filter whenever you need information? It should be there. There's
Yeah,
no reason for it not to be there. The people do have to record it. They have to record the answers as if they are talking to you, and that's fine. You're going to spend that time doing it anyway, and you probably do it 100 times a week. Why not just do it once,
and get it
get
over
it
with.
over
Yeah,
with, and then everybody can ask your story file those questions, and the conversations that you can have with these people in person when you do meet them would be completely different. You're think about professors' office hours. They get the same questions over and over again. Anyone that has experienced anything that we want to learn from as human beings gets asked the same questions about those experiences and about their lives. And because as human beings, that's what we do. We want
yeah.
to learn about life. We want to learn. So hopefully we don't make the same mistakes. Or if we do, we make a little bit different and alter it or learn from it. Or maybe we don't. Maybe we say, okay, that's not me, but at least it going in. So I think there's no part of your life that can't customer service, FAQs.
It's all with human interaction. And the thing in the question that begs the question is why not just have some sort of chatbot? You're saying that, and I've firsthand experience that you provide that answer. They still go to you. They still go to the human to give the answer, even though it's some document or some chat. Because of that hinge point.
You wanna look at someone in the eyes and get their response and hear it. And yeah, it's always gonna be a finite amount of data. And yes, you might once you find out a certain amount of data, you might still have to go to that human being, but at least you've been more efficient with the time
Yeah.
in the meantime.
Yeah, it's a different use ca and again, pushing someone to a FAQ page or whatever, it's still I think the weight is still on the user to seek out as opposed to having it present and easily available into one location and having that
Yeah.
it's a relationship with a deep
Yeah.
fake, but it's
Oh,
still
yeah. People will interact with someone's story file, and when they meet them, they will think that they know them.
they met them.
Yes.
You I already get that now. "Oh, I listened to your audiobook. I listened to the podcast. I
Yeah.
know who you are." And you're
Yeah,
weirded out because it's your first time meeting them. You're like,
yeah.
"Okay, cool. Nice
I
to
know.
meet you."
My husband's father actually was when he was diagnosed with dementia, so his story file he could not do today.
Oh, wow.
And that's a gift you're giving these people. I don't know if you've ever lost anyone close to you,
Mhm.
but it's a gift now that we can have other generations get to know those people that shaped our lives and that were so important to us.
Absolutely. No, I'm already thinking of people personally. You run this business though with your husband, right? So it is a family-owned business?
It's not a family-owned business.
It's family-ran business. I know you got
Uh,
investors
So
coming
I
through.
every business goes through a growth period. And my grandfather always told me, know what you're good at, know what you're not good at, and get the best people around you that you can get to do what you are not good at.
Yeah.
And scaling this business, we needed help and we needed infrastructure. We needed bandwidth and brain power. And I begged my husband to come be the CEO
Nice.
because he's the best I could think of. And yeah, but it's not a family. It's actually a corporation, so it's not really a
No, right
family.
on. No, it's still it's having that there. As this grows, as you grow with obviously the more tailwinds in this digital economy, the more interactions that we have. Do you see this marrying up really well? Just like right now, we're mentioning the personal use, but also is the majority of your users are the focus because the business has to make profits to survive for the future. Are you focusing more on the business use case or is it still strictly on the consumer use case?
Okay, so I'm probably this sacrilegious, but we do one thing. We do conversational video. Doesn't matter if it's consumers or doesn't matter if it's B2B.
Mm,
We actually have a B2B platform
yeah,
that we're building out now. And actually, we have huge companies using it and working in it right now. The consumer plays a longer game.
yeah,
Definitely. It takes a lot more marketing dollars, takes a lot more fundraising to support. B2B corporations are always looking for something to make them more efficient in
yeah.
time. It's a no brainer for them. The biggest thing is we have to build awareness around that you can actually do this now. Video can truly be truly interactive, not
Oh,
just I'm putting up another video behind me and playing it while I talk, or I'm not just putting a product that is 3D and like turning it around and you can listen to me talk about it. It's actually interactive the way it was intended, the word is intended
no,
to
I'm gonna have to
I
do a really long intro for this podcast just so you know to make people because they're not gonna watch the video up front. So
Oh, yeah.
to explain that it's very important to know like what this can be, what this can do.
So you can talk to video. It's important that we build awareness and educate the public that they can talk and ask questions of video.
I
Video
would think it's even more than just video content. It's like you can talk to a digital avatar of that person who has a limit, like a data source of
it's
that
it's
almost,
not
right?
even so I'm very careful about
Yeah.
using the words digital avatars or
Okay.
recreation. Yes, there is a use case for avatars. There is a use case for character digital human beings, things like that, and they can all use StoryFile as well, and
Yeah.
they can all use conversational video as well. We focus generally on actually real people recording their own content
Yeah.
and you talking to them. And it's you might say it's a digital representation, but it's your true self.
Yeah. It's not there. And this is keeps in the integrity that
Mm.
you won't alter the message of whatever that person
No,
is.
nothing is ever edited, manipulated, or altered.
Yeah.
Anything you record stays as you record it.
Yeah. And keeping the purity of that is definitely, I think, part of the long term play. And
Very important to us, especially for example, I don't want the founder of our a company, I don't want it in 20 years saying, "Oh, you put words in his mouth and he didn't really say that, or she
yeah.
didn't really say that." I don't want my grandmother, like, 20 years from now and say, "Oh, you built that as an avatar and you used all these things that you think that she would have said."
Yeah.
I don't want that personally, but there's a place for it. Not saying there's not, but it's just not if anyone wants a realistic, believable, authentic conversation from somebody and they can truly trust what those people said,
Yeah.
then this is your place.
Yeah, that's the biggest hurdle, keeping the purity of the message clean. But Heather, thank you so much for being on today. For our listeners out there, to one, thank you for being on today. Where can they go to learn more about you and what you're up to?
At storyfile.com
Okay.
and any of the usual social media channels. So just Storyfile, our B2B platform is called Conversa, and
Okay.
that's the platform that you use to create your own conversational video content. And creators, we have no idea how creators will use this. They can
Yeah.
use it any way they want. We're not putting any guardrails up in it. So
Well, this is
it'll be
cool.
very cool to see how companies use it and how people use it. And yeah, I'm really excited for that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Heather, we'll put those links in the show notes. Thank you again.
Thank you.
If you found value in today's podcast, please consider sharing this with someone that you believe could also benefit from this episode. You never know, you may be the catalyst that opens them up to a new way of operating their business and experiencing life. As always, it's an honor to be a small part of your journey. This is Raul Hernandez. Do good work.